Okay. All right. Can everyone hear me? I guess is the first question. I'm quite new to live streaming. All right. Thank you. All right. Cool. Thank you, CL, KL, and Maggie. Mr. Visual, hello. Briefly's fine. It's just a test. I'll plan to do something a little bit more official here in the next couple of days. But I wanted to make sure that this worked out all the bugs. You guys can hear me. Were you able to, did the intro video play? Is my other question. And could you hear the audio during it? Like the symphonic intro? Yes? Okay, thanks, Maggie. All right, the next thing I'd like to try. Yeah, okay, good. All right, and the other thing I'm gonna try is I'm gonna share a window here. Let's see if this works. Can you see the map? Okay, I'm getting yeses. Robert, CL, Maggie, thank you. Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is the map I've been working on. I'm not gonna go over it in detail right now. That's actually what I'm planning on doing the live stream for once we get through the test. But for those of you that haven't seen it, I spent a bunch of time yesterday building out some of the characteristics of the, here, I've gotta make my screen to the side here so I can see the chat too. I'm working off a laptop here, so my screen's not huge. I built out these elements on the map. I'm hoping this will help when placing the videos, the links to the videos for finding like exactly where they go. This was painstaking, unfortunately, but I feel like it was necessary. Yeah, maps are cool. Yes. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Visual's. His last video was awesome. I had some of those same questions, like how you could see through the brown piece. It appeared to be like translucent. It didn't make sense to me. I know Mr. Burgundy, who might jump on here, might not. I invited him. Thought it was an arm. To me, it didn't look like an arm. I didn't know what it was, but I had a little bit of discussion with him about it. It's certainly odd. I mean, I went through some of the same analysis Mr. Visual did, but not in quite such detail because he's really good at that. But yeah, it's very strange. So I tweeted about it. I think the LVMPD. I mean, that's one of those things I think that we can all agree upon is. There's something wrong with that photo, right? It was in the fit report, so we know it's official, and it shouldn't have been modified at all. And unfortunately, all the photos in the fit report are very low quality. So, I mean, maybe if we get a high quality version of it, we'll be able to tell, what it is. But at this point, I mean, who knows? And it looks like those photos were shot with a flash. When you shoot with a flash, you have a really fast. Lens, yeah, I'm sorry, gosh, shutter speed. I'm a little bit nervous here, I'm like stage fright, but you have fast shutter speed. So, if it was an arm or something like that in motion, you wouldn't expect to see it blur because of the fast shutter speed. It should have just picked up whatever was in motion. And that's usually typical with the flash. Now, if you go back and look at the leaked photos, those don't appear to have been taken with a flash. So you might see some blurring in those. I would expect to see some if there was something in motion, but not in the ones in the fit report. Maybe I can pull that up here. Anyway, what I was saying is like I think something like this where we can all agree. I mean, there's so many things we disagree on as a community, but I feel like this kind of thing is something that we can all agree upon. And when we can all agree upon it, I think that it gives us power in trying to really put pressure on LVMPD, either that, and whether that's just going out and tweeting a whole bunch about it and hitting them up on Facebook and then spreading the word. I don't know, but I feel like something like that, it just needs to be answered. Like what even is this? You know what I mean? It looks like somebody. What it looks like to me. I'm using Sleep Tap. I'll answer that in just one second. What it looks like to me is that they tried to, like and Mr. Visual kind of mentioned this in his video, but it looks like they tried to draw in a frame, like that they, it almost looks painted in, like they painted it in and they were going to come sweep back later and build it maybe in CAD or something like that and paste it in there. I mean, your mind kind of goes wild, and I try to start from like what's most likely to have happened in reality, like what could they have been doing that makes logical sense where they weren't trying to do a cover up, and then work backwards from there. But this is just really, it's just really suspect, and I think it needs an answer. Sleep Depth, the software I'm using is called OBS. I'm not sure what it stands for, but it's free, and it was pretty easy to set up. And you can set up different scenes. That's what allows me to, flip between, like, let me get back to it, but flip between this photo and then this window. And it also allowed me to do the little meter that shows, mic volume. It's pretty cool. I'm still pretty new at it. I can do some pretty cool stuff, though. I think it's what, like, Jason Goodman uses, or something similar to that. It's just free, that's just why I picked it up. Yeah, my question is, Media doesn't look cut out. Definitely doesn't look cut out for evidence. Yeah, I mean, my question is, I mean, in the fit report, they left out a whole bunch of things that I would expect to have seen, right? It was a crime scene, so why don't we have pictures of every room or every part of every room? We're missing some of those. And so why, if they did edit this photo, why didn't they leave it out? Well, maybe it was, maybe it was planned on being put in there, but then they put in, they put in an early edit of it accidentally. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department doesn't quite have my confidence. They've an example is where they didn't redact Douglas Haig's name out of the one of the warrants. But you could argue that that was maybe intentional. I don't know. Yeah, KL said several images in the fit photos seem to match that description, altered or blurred. I agree. And it was a PDF, and the photos were just low quality. I wish they would have attached the high quality versions of the photos along with it. It's just hard to tell. I mean, like I said, if we get a high res photo version of that photo, it might be very clear once we get the high res one, what it was. Maybe not though. It's just strange how it has kind of those dark outlines to it. Let me get back to it. Oh, it's already still pulled up. But yeah, like those, the dark outlines to the lighter brown pieces. Are you able to see my mouse? Let me see if I can get back to, if I move my mouse around this scene, are you able to see my mouse where I'm pointing, or do I need to get something that allows me to point out where my mouse is? Hey, return to logic. Sorry guys, if I'm not saying hi to you, I promise you it's nothing personal. I'm a little bit of stage fright right now. This is the second time I've actually brought my voice onto my channel, and I really don't put out that much. A couple people in the community have heard my voice previous to this. I met a couple people when I was out in Vegas I'm trying to catch up through the comments here. You can't see the mouse? Okay. Well, I'll make a note of that, and I'll have to wrap back around and see if I can figure out something to show my mouse. It might be an option in this OBS software, which stands for, I saw somebody posted. Where was that? Open Broadcaster Software. Thank you, Mr. Visual. There might be a way to show your mouse in it. Haha, the bracket. We can talk about whatever you want, Media Zay. This is completely informal since this is just a test, so. Yeah, it does feel a little awkward, Sleep Dev. Yeah. I spent a number of years in my early 20s on stage. I was in a band, so back then I was a little bit more accustomed to being in front of a group of people. I work in IT, so I don't get in front of people that often anymore. The 13 tattoo. Yeah, that's another one of those things where, you know, the quality of that photo is just like not too great, you know, and it could have been just, I mean, we can only speculate, right? I did want to, since I have a group of you here, if you aren't already aware of it, there's a great tool, and Mr. Visual kind of used something like this in his video. Let me see if I can find it here, and I'll paste a link for it. It's this online tool. I've shared it with a couple people, and I can't remember who showed it to me. I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, there it is. So I've got another browser here that I'm pulling up pages with in, and then I'll paste them over to the other one that you all can see. Actually, I'll just put it here so we can get back to that if we want to. It's this website here. I'll post it in the chat too. It's pretty cool. It's called Forensically, but it allows you to do things like, just take for example this image that it loads up initially with this flying saucer in it. It allows you to analyze photos to see if they've been altered, basically if it's been photoshopped. So it can be useful if you've never used it. Just get in there and play around with it. But like, for example, it's got a magnifier here built in. It's got some analyzation stuff. So if it's flashing, like this clone detection is kind of flashing right now, it's thinking. And then eventually it will show the results of what you've got selected here. And my computer's running a little bit slower here because I'm streaming. Eventually it should pop up. It's a cool tool. It's online, it's free for analyzing stuff. If you want to pull up a file, your own file, you just go to Open File here and pull it off your computer. I'm not going to do that right now for privacy stuff. I haven't really gone through and made sure that I don't have any personally identifying information there. The earlobes. Yeah, the earlobes, the 13, there's, you know, I think that if I had my wish, okay, so the Las Vegas Police Department, I'm following the case now pretty closely, the case for the evidence. Las Vegas Police Department has basically done everything in their power to prevent the evidence from being released. There's a ton of it, you know, there's hours and hours upon hours of 911 calls. There's all the body cam evidence. There would be additional photos, all that stuff from the crime scene. A lot of that, it shouldn't need any redacting, which is one of the reasons that they've said that there's been a delay. You know, for example, the buses. If you recall the shots that went into the tour buses, those pictures, there should be no reason for them not to release those. You know, if there are photos, up close photos of the bullets into the buses, there should be no reason to not release those. There's nothing that needs to be redacted or anything like that. But they're holding on so tightly to the evidence, it does, you know, it does make you wonder. But if I had one wish of one piece of evidence, just one, that I wanted to see the most, I think at the top of that one thing would be the body cams for any of the officers that were wearing them that breached the room. I know there were some police, there was the one SWAT guy, right? And I think there was a K-9 officer as well, but any of those body cams, I think that seeing the body cam upon entry of the room would answer so many questions. You know, we would see maybe Paddock's body, maybe we wouldn't, you know, maybe it could move, maybe we would see the gun over the leg, maybe we wouldn't. I just think that would answer so many questions. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've started to really focus in on the court cases. I'm just reading through your comments right now. I'm trying to catch up. The plates on the cart. Yeah, I can't remember whose video I was talking about, or I was watching, about the plates on the cart, but apparently from that, and I haven't really, you know, just to be full disclosure, I haven't really looked into it a lot myself, but apparently the plates weren't on the cart, at least weren't on the camera to begin with, that the plates were there to actually put on there to block the camera initially. And it, you know, I've made this point too, with some of the people that I've spoken with. But the crime scene integrity of the rooms 135 and 134, if I had that on like a 1 to 100 scale, 100 being that nothing was touched, everything was pristine and left in its complete, you know, original position, and then 0 being everything was moved around, I would really give that, like, the crime scene like probably like a 50 out of 100, that I think that anything that's in there was actually in its original position. And I posted a video about this previously, because in the FIT report it does state that they went through looking for additional information, basically through Paddock stuff, in a rush to try to determine, you know, what was going on the rest of the strip, because at that time there were still, you know, gunshots being reported across the strip at the MGM and the Bellagio and basically everywhere. Planet Hollywood, I think, even. Yeah, the Supreme Court, Kale, is the next stop. I'm following that pretty closely. So the case that's in the 8th District Court is still open. It's not closed. But what's interesting about it is that the Las Vegas Review-Journal has requested reimbursement for all of their fees, their court fees, which usually, one, they would only do if the court case was over, and two, this is my understanding, by the way, I'm not a legal expert, and two, yeah, really, I guess that's it, that they wouldn't do it until the court case was, you know, completely over and had been closed. But somebody did tell me, somebody that knows a little bit more about legal stuff told me that once it's gone, once the appeal has started to the Supreme Court, that they can file for those reimbursements. And I have somebody I'm working with that I met on Twitter that's also watching the court cases, and she's contacted multiple times now the Supreme Court, and they hadn't yet received the appeal case, but apparently that can take a while. What's interesting about that too is that one of the orders that came through does say that that if the case hasn't been resolved by April 27th, that the order for the Las Vegas Police Department to release the evidence stands. So, you know, my assumption from that is that if they don't get it solved by the 27th, unless they get some kind of extension, that they have to start releasing the evidence. But I don't know. You know, I've learned to really not depend on anything from this case. They'll do whatever they can to push the dates. Yeah, sleep dip. I saw your comment about the owls. Do you have any indication, or what's your gut say about if those owls were placed there by Paddock? Because his neighbor had one. I saw that video. Or if those were placed there by, the Las Vegas Police Department or the FBI. Any indication as to, like, is the FBI known to use those? Would be, I guess, a question to ask. Maybe they have, 100 of them. They just keep an inventory and they pull them out. Yeah, the Bohemian Grove tie. Yeah, I saw that. Jake Morphonius would be all over that, I'm sure. Door-to-door salesman, yeah. They just went around and they're like, hey, these owls, these security owls, your neighbor's already got one, so you should probably pick one up too. Keeping up with the Joneses, The owls are common in the desert area. Yeah, I think. Well, these are surveillance owls. If you don't know what we're talking about, go check out Sleep Depths. He has a couple videos on the owls, but they're hidden camera owls. Basically, it's like a nanny cam. The owl's got a motion detecting camera inside it that can offload, I think, to an offsite DVR, or maybe they have an option that has a DVR in the owl. I'm not sure. Probably offsite. That way, if the owl goes missing, you still got the footage. What does Weg Oag mean? That's a really good question. I was going to do a Q&A on my next video, but I think I'm going to answer that one. So, Mr. Visual, what Weg Oag means is nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I think it was actually Jake Morphonios asked me the same question, and so I went out to, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling this. I don't think he would mind me telling the story, but when I went out to Vegas for the protest, I introduced myself to Jake Morphonios. Now my real name I gave Weg Oag. And he's like, oh, he's like, I've been trying to figure that out. What does Weg Oag mean? And I laugh because it means absolutely nothing. I think when you sign up for, I want to say Gmail, one of the services I signed up for when I created my accounts required a name. Like, it wouldn't let me go past it without a name. So I decided to just create something that means nothing. And come to find out, I actually went on a trip to California last weekend, and there's actually a company called Weg. If you look it up, you Google it. And there's actually, I think, an organization called Oag too. But yeah, absolutely no relation to anything. It's just completely made up. But now everybody calls me Weg, and I just go by that in this community. Yeah, I live in the desert too. Owls are not native, but owl decorations may be different. Yeah, the mediaze. You mentioned the abrasions on his right knee and the back of his knee. I actually looked into that pretty heavily at one point. It's baffling to me because I can understand an abrasion on the right knee, right? because you're kneeling, you know, if you're shooting guns. But on the back, it's like on the back, I think in the back of his calf or the back of his knee. That's just really interesting to me. It's not a likely place to get an injury of any sort. And when I was looking into it, there was actually this, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this, but there was a Mossad. It was a Mossad hit that happened, gosh, I want to say in the UAE, in like Dubai. Like they weren't supposed to be there, but there was a hit. There was a group of them, a whole team. And the man that they hit, they broke into his hotel room and they killed him. Part of the reporting shows that he had abrasions on the back of his legs, and they said it was from shockers. What are those called? Like a stun gun. It was like a stun gun they used on the back of his leg. So I don't know, you know. And at that point, I wasn't thinking, you know, like I said, my philosophy is kind of to start from what's most likely, and even the official narrative, and then kind of work out from there. You know, I wouldn't be here if I believed in the official narrative. I mean, I wouldn't be spending the kind of time that I am, just like probably all of you. But I use that as a starting point because it is the most likely scenario, because that's what the police all have agreed upon and given us. I know there's a fallacy in there somewhere, but so after I read that information about the right knee, I did suspect that it might have been possible that somebody broke in and, you know, tortured Paddock to an extent for some reason, maybe to get his bank account information or I don't know what, by shocking the back of his legs. And I wonder if they would shock the back of his legs because of, you know, it's just an odd place. It wouldn't show on the face, wouldn't show on the arms. It would just be kind of inconspicuous. Weg Oag, secret Illuminati password. Yeah, well, secret Illuminati is a little redundant, but I feel you there. Yeah, Jake's, and I'm sorry I'm kind of behind the comments, guys, but Jake has kind of left the Vegas thing, and he kind of stopped covering it around the time when he did the interview with Hoover. They had that little, you know, scuffle, and Jake was calling out Hoover on not being in Thailand. It was a really interesting fireworks that happened there. And I've met Jake. He's awesome. I went to the dinner at the out in Vegas out there, and I mean I think, you know, we all have our theories, but as far as just personable people, I thought Jake was actually pretty cool. Sleep Deb, I see. I mean, you can try to figure out what my name means, but you know, I heard something. You know, they're having the reboot right now on Netflix of Lost in Space, and I heard something that HAL, that computer, was actually a play on IBM. They just moved each letter. You know, it was one up from IBM. If you take every letter in IBM and move the letters forward in the alphabet towards the A, then they come up with HAL. But my name means nothing. Yeah, I mean, I think there's better ways. So there were, when I was studying the back of the leg thing, I came up with basically three main theories. One was what I mentioned already, that they were shocking the back of his leg for some reason or another. You could say, you know, that was used to torture him. to give up bank information. You could say it was used to subdue him. Maybe he was shooting, but shocking was one. The other one was I actually looked into how police use their nightsticks, the bobby sticks. And one of the strikes you can do, there's actually a nerve along the back of the leg. One of the strikes you can do is on the back of the leg. And I think it's used to drop somebody. So if somebody was standing there and you struck them across the back of the leg and hit that nerve, it would drop them to the ground. And obviously it would leave a mark, but it's like in an inconspicuous place. And also that strike you can do from behind, because it's the back of the legs. And then the third one was just some type of restraint. They were restraining him somehow. Whoever that they is, I don't know, you can speculate, but somebody was restraining him to the ground. And then I guess there's a fourth explanation, which is that it was just something that Paddock was doing, and somehow he hurt the back of his leg, and it has nothing to do with the shooting. Haunted by Haunteds associated the owl with sleep debt. Not the Bohemian Grove though, it's sleep debt. Like he sees an owl. Yeah, it's interesting. There's when I see butterflies now, it makes me think of help me out here. What do the butterflies mean? It's that program where they brainwash those children. MK Ultra, thank you, Truth Seekers United. Yeah, so whenever I see butterflies, it makes me think of MK Ultra. Yeah, I watched Sleep Dep. I watched Jake's video about Columbine as well. What similarities did you see? And maybe I could scroll back here. Maybe you mentioned it. Yeah, Monarch, Project Monarch. Yeah, the tanks. Oh yeah, they did. They did try to blow up the tanks, right? Unsuccessfully, in the Columbine shooting, or Columbine, if you're Jake. Which I guess makes sense for that pronunciation since it's kind of like Columbus. But yeah, they tried to. It was sickening to me to watch that whole video. I haven't gone that deep into what happened at Columbine. Just sickening how much planning went into it, right? And it's not like the Vegas shooting where it seems like maybe there was some light planning, but it seems like kind of everything came together in those last couple of days, right? These guys that did the Columbine shooting, they planned it well, months and months, or they were so well planned out. They knew exactly what they were going to do. They were going to decoy an explosion away that was going to draw the police there, and that does actually, now that I say it out loud, it does have some similarities. If you believe that the tanks were a diversion to pull people away, to pull the police and stuff like that away, so you could just massacre. And I actually had this theory about the window in 135, because if you look at what window he broke in 135, it was an angled window. It wasn't facing east. It was facing like northeast. And if you look at what vantage point that offers versus an east-facing window, it's really down Las Vegas Boulevard. And there is an exit. If you look at the Las Vegas Village map for the Route 91 festival, there were a number of exits on the left-hand side. So what you would expect to see if you exploded the tanks, you would expect to see people flood out the opposite way. So they would flood out the gates on the west side and up Las Vegas Boulevard, and that window that was broken in 135 gives a perfect vantage point if you just wanted to start picking people off that were heading up Las Vegas Boulevard. I don't think so. That is a little bit different, I think, than what happened to Columbine, because I don't think that they were going to use the tanks to cause people to flood out. But you know, yeah, the OCD type personalities too. I do see that, and also you could make an argument if Paddock did do it. The level, and a lot of people said how calm, right? How calm the two guys from the Columbine shooting were. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the videos of Paddock inside the hotel, extremely calm. You know, business is normal. Like there's nothing that would, except for all those bags, that would really, I think, key off anybody to thinking that he was planning on something so horrible. You know, assuming that he did it. Las Vegas mapping project. Something for the D. Las Vegas mapping project. We'll think of something. I love the name though. Sleep Dep. It's funny. Directory, Las Vegas mapping project directory, maybe. Could be Las Vegas mapping project department. Truth Seekers United said, odd that Paddock would not shoot at the cops. They had cars pulled up in plain sight. I thought the cops did take fire, although the police officer that was killed was off duty, I believe, and attending the concert. But I believe that the police did take fire, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about the cars that were parked on the street. That's why we need the evidence, you know? That's why we need all the crime scene photos, and that would be part of the crime scene. If bullets struck the police cars. Yeah, the butterflies. I mean, Las Vegas has a lot of, if you're really big into symbols, Las Vegas has a ton of symbols just walking around. I mean, not just the pyramid and the butterflies and the obelisk. I mean, if you just walk up the strip, you know, if you're into that sort of thing. I try to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because, you know, a lot of design involves triangles. You know, a lot of design involves things, you know, wildlife, butterflies, you know. So I mean, okay, I think I'm behind on the chat here. I'm scrolling down. Mediaze said Hoover is going to try to explain the sounds of gunfire. Why the sounds of gunfire were so loud in the taxicab video. I mean, do you mean if they... Oh, if they came from a helicopter. Well, you know, in the helicopter theory it's a theory, as are all of our theories. As far as I'm concerned, it's you know, it's one of the more outlandish ones. You know, having said that, there was strange helicopter activity that happened that day. I don't think anybody's denied that. But to draw the link between helicopters and gunfire and helicopters and killing people, there doesn't exist, that I've seen, there does not exist a link. There have been a couple of, you know, there were a couple of eyewitness reports where people thought they saw helicopters, but you know, the vast majority of the eyewitness reports, as well as the, you know, police scanner radio, all point to the gunfire coming from Mandalay Bay. So I think it's important to vet out why those helicopters were there without drawing the link as to that they were, you know, firing guns out of them. And maybe you'll come to that, but I think that drawing that line is, you know, if it takes you down a path of doing more research, I think it can be useful as long as you're able to get your head back out of there. I believe the obelisk, I'm trying to remember, but I believe the camera is inside the obelisk underneath. I think I have pictures of it from when I was in Vegas. And there's actually a door, if I remember right, so you can walk. The obelisk goes over the sidewalk, and if you walk underneath that, I believe there's a camera there and a door. I think you can actually go up. Somebody can actually go up. Maybe there's lighting in there that they can, you know, they have to replace the bulbs or whatnot. But there's a door, because there's a door. That's probably the reason for the camera. You know, it's just a security thing. Vegas has cameras everywhere. It's, you know, I think somewhat of an insurance policy. I didn't know they released butterflies at the memorial gathering. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, firing from a helicopter, I mean, I can't believe I'm discussing this, but firing from a helicopter would be extremely difficult. It's possible. Firing from a hotel room as far away as, you know, 32-135 was also extremely difficult. And I think Brian Shields, I think is his name, pointed that out really well in his video. You know, just the angle at which somebody would have to actually be shooting from, just using, you know, he's using geometry or trigonometry. You know, it would be very hard for anybody, let alone a 64-year-old man in complete darkness shooting with bump stocks. You know, I think that's difficult. But if you look at the other side of the math, like statistically, how many times did he have to actually hit the target of that, you know, part of the crowd to actually be effective? And it might actually be lower than you might imagine. It might have been, you know, it might be something like 1 in 4 times. Like he only had to be on target 1 in 4 times to do that much damage, which seems a little bit easier when you look at it kind of statistically. Yeah, I mean, Paddock was an accountant, right? But it seems, and people have looked into his finances, that he made his money other ways. Probably not gambling. He invested in real estate and things like that. And actually, Robert did a really good write-up on that. If you're not already part of Voices for Vegas, which is a forum, you know, it's not super active anymore, but there are still people on there that go in there and have discussions. So if you haven't signed up for it and at least checked it out, you know, might be worth your time. I'll post a link here in the chat. A little plug for Voices for Vegas. Yeah, JB. JB said I just can't put together the idea of the older guy pulling this off alone. Crazy. My father is 64 years old. That's Stephen Paddock's age, was. Could my father have pulled this off? I mean, I love my dad, and don't tell him I said this, but I don't think there's any way. You know what I mean? And my dad's in shape, and he, you know, but just the damage that we do have taken to his shoulder, and you know, he's older and his eyesight's not too great, and you know, there's just a bunch of things that would be working against him. And actually, some of the confirmation I got was actually from my dad when I started working on this, maybe in January, and I kind of shared it with my parents. And my parents are the most, like, think about the most tinfoil hat person on the planet, and then the complete opposite end of that. That's my parents. Like, they are like, oh no, we'll just watch the mainstream media, and we'll believe everything that we read in the papers, and we're not going to look on into that. So that's just to give you a little perspective of how my parents are. And when I had dinner with my parents one time, and my dad was like, yeah, I just don't get it. He's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And I was like, bingo, like, that's it for me. Like, my dad being the most sane person, if he has problems with what happened in Vegas, you know, that just says it all. You know what I mean? Like, that says it all. And I think that because of that, I feel this great responsibility to try to solve this, you know, for people. I think we deserve, just as humanity, and you know, those of us in America, I think we deserve to know what happened. Yeah, I mean, I told Alan, Farmers for Truth, I was like, you know, if you can find a 64-year-old man to go out there with a bump stock and 1,100 rounds, I'm like, I will pitch in for the ammunition, because I would love to see that test. You know, let's get a 64-year-old out there with a bump stock, trying to hit it. You know, even just have him shoot downward off of a mountain or off of a hill, trying to hit a general target range, you know, target area. We probably wouldn't be able to see exactly where the bullets go, and see what happens. Can he pull it off? How does his shoulder look? He thought it was a good idea, but I don't think he ever carried it out. And I don't have the rifles for my father to do it. Burgundy's like 70, right? I'm not sharing any personal information about Mr. Burgundy. I mean, his channel name is Mr. Burgundy, so, you know, you'd think that would put him in a certain age range. I don't know if somebody 70 would be into Mr. Burgundy, you know, Ron Burgundy. And I really like that you spelled his name right, Sleep Dev. Good job. JB said Hickok 45 would do it. Is that somebody that has weapons and ammunition? And is he 64? Burgundy's a wise old man. Will Ferrell's 50. So Mr. Burgundy is too. That's good. That's pretty good logic. I'll go with that. You know, Mr. Burgundy and people like UFO Hunter UK. You know, there's a bunch of us that are kind of in the same boat. Meaning, on YouTube. Meaning we're like kind of anonymous players, you know, and I debated whether or not I even wanted to put my voice on here, but yeah, I mean, I guess we all have reasons for being anonymous, but I feel somewhat of camaraderie with, you know, those people that are out there that are trying to solve this. They're trying to stick to as much as they can to the facts while theorizing, and then also remaining anonymous. You know. And I really credit those people out there that, you know, that are willing to put themselves out there and say, hey, this is me, you know, this is my name, and, you know, there's some danger in doing that for sure, but it takes courage. Sleep Dep, thank you for showing up. If you're saying your phone battery is at 6%, I feel you. Thank you for being around and being the admin. Yeah, the symbol. It just lined up with the eye, Sleep Dep. I see what you're getting at. Or did it? I don't know. I'll let you be the judge. Okay, so I think I'm going to close down the stream here in a few minutes, guys. We've almost been on for about an hour. I really didn't expect this many people to join, so thank you so much. I mean, I think it means a bunch to me, but more importantly, I think it means for me how important, you know, it is that what we're doing. So I thank you. I'm going to do another kind of more official live stream here. We're going to talk more about the maps. It's going to be in the next couple days, so keep an eye out for that. And we'll discuss the maps. I'll also be doing like a general Q&A if you have any questions of me. I'll also kind of tackle that. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you all so much. Take care.